Neshwari Vrishabhanusuते Devi Pranamami Haripriye Vanchakalpatarubhyascha Kripasindhubhyev cha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasadi Gaura Bhakta Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna. Very happy and grateful to be amidst all of you all here today. So we're continuing from yesterday on the topic of relationships. So today we're going to discuss 4 aspects of what is called as a balanced person or somebody who has strong emotional quotient. The 4 things are self-awareness, self-management, social awareness, and relationship management. So over a period of the next whatever amount of time we have, we will discuss these 4 aspects in very great details. So first we will take up what is known as self-awareness. Self-awareness essentially means know your emotions. The sure shot formula for making your life miserable is to allow other people's ratings to determine your own self-rating. Today is a age where we are constantly seeking approval from others. Social media, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, it's all about likes and dislikes. Right? So, human beings look at themselves through the lenses of others. If others say you're doing good, then you will feel, yes, I'm doing good. If others say you're doing bad, the people feel I'm doing bad. So constantly we're looking at what others are saying, and others just judge you based on some external factors. In the Mahabharata, we have one very interesting personality who continuously rated himself based on what others think about him. And for him, no matter how successful he was, that didn't matter. Whether others thought him to be successful or not, that mattered more. In the just before the Kurukshetra war, there was a gathering of all the Kaurava leaders, and Bhishma was the commander-in-chief of the Kaurava army. He was actually giving a rating to each of the leaders. Some readers is calling them Maharathi. Maharathi means somebody who can kill thousands of people. Some people is calling them Rathi. Like that, he was giving different ratings. And when it came to Karna, he gave the rating of Ardharathi. Ardharathi means half a warrior. He can't even kill one person properly. Now, can you imagine? Karna was the most powerful of the warriors, like almost like Arjun, and he's given the rating of Ardharathi. Karna couldn't handle it. He asked Bhishma, "What nonsense? How dare you give me this rating?" Now, whether it is Karna or somebody in the corporate world, whenever it comes to appraisals, nobody is happy. So Karna, when he started questioning Bhishma, Bhishma said, "See, you have a curse on your head." Parshuram, his guru, cursed him that during the most important war of his life, he forget all the knowledge. So Bhishma's logic was, if during the most important war you forget everything, what's the point of having you? Just like there are some children who are very good throughout the year, but when it comes to exam, they fail. So what's the point of being good all through the year, but when you can't be good in the exam, right? So Karna, he couldn't handle this, and he took a vow that time that as long as Bhishma is alive, I won't fight in the war. So out of the 18 days of the war, 10 days Karna didn't fight at all. Can you imagine? So Krishna, when he saw this, Krishna went to Karna and gave him an offer. He told him, "See, you're a Kshatriya and you're not fighting anyways. So what will you do? You'll just be hanging around outside." He said, "I'll give an offer. till Bhishma is alive, why don't you fight for the Pandavas? And after Bhishma dies, go and fight for the Kauravas. Now Krishna was specifically doing this for a reason. The reason is because Krishna knew that Karna had what is known as a low self-image. People who have a hollow self-image or a low self-image about themselves, they constantly depend on other people's opinions. And they are constantly seeking others' opinions and advice and guidance, and not exactly guidance, but other, you know, others, uh, the way they perceive them. So it's kind of a very narrow way of seeing oneself. So there are four thought processes or mindsets that exist when it comes to seeing your own self-image. The first mindset is known as a win-lose. That means for me to win, you have to lose. This is the way the world understands it. It's the competitive mentality. The whole corporate world is based on this. If I have to go up, I have to step on you and go ahead in life. The second mindset is known as a lose-win. That means here the mindset is a lot of sacrifice. So such people think that don't worry, you go ahead, I will sacrifice for you. So initially such people are very happy that they're sacrificing for the sake of others, it gives a certain amount of joy. But after some time they start getting irritated. They start thinking that I have become like a doormat. Everybody is stepping on me and going ahead in life. What about me? Yeah. They actually get frustrated at some point, especially when the sacrificial mood is from a low self-esteem or rather a low self-image of oneself. The third mindset is known as a lose-lose. So such people who have a low self-image and who have always been sacrificing, they get irritated and they come to a third mindset which is known as lose-lose. That means if I'm going to lose, I'll not lose alone. I'll pull you also down with me. So there are many people who get into what is known as a downward spiral. Just like when they transport crabs, there is a very interesting phenomenon which is observed. This is known as the crab mentality. So when they transport crabs, they never cover the lid of the basket. The reason they never cover the lid of the basket is because the crab mentality is very powerful. So when one crab tries to get out, all other crabs enthusiastically pull this fellow down. As a result, never ever any crab gets out of the basket. So unfortunately, human beings are very, very inspired by the crab mentality. So when they see somebody going up, they all pull that fellow down. Initially, they push that fellow up, and when he reaches up, they pull him down. Some kind of fun they have. You will find that anytime sports stars or film stars, any kind of politicians, any kind of people who are rising up, so people are enthusiastically promoting that person and bring him up right to the top. So when he's at peak, they pull him down. So this is some kind of a sarcastic or a sadistic kind of pleasure that people derive. The fourth mindset is known as a win-win mindset. Here, the thought process is, if I have to win, you don't have to lose. And if you have to win, I don't have to lose. You can win, I can also win. Because this mindset is based on what is known as synergy. That means each person has a strength and weakness. Rather than thinking that I have no weakness or I have no strength, I need to understand I have some weakness and I have some strength. And so do you. When we synergize, it's possible that both people win. There are two ways to be unhappy in life. Most people in this world will tell you two ways to be happy in life. I'm telling you two ways to be unhappy in life. And I can give you a guarantee if you follow these two ways, you will surely be unhappy in life. So the first way to be unhappy in life is try to make everybody happy. If you try to make everybody happy, there will be one person who is unhappy, that is you. There are so many people in this world who try to make everybody happy. And unfortunately, they get so frustrated. The second way to be unhappy in life is try to make everybody happy with you. If everyone is happy and one person is unhappy with you, you will become unhappy. Like there was one boy who made his first YouTube video and he put it up. And by the next day, there were 99 likes. and one dislike. Now this fellow became frustrated. He was crying. He said, "Why this one person didn't like my video?" I said, "Come on, 99 people like. What about that?" He said, "That doesn't matter to me. This one fellow didn't like. That's what I'm going to focus on." He actually went into depression because one fellow didn't like. I should give myself the freedom to be happy with myself, immaterial of whether others are happy with me or not. Generally, depending on the way you perceive yourself, eventually others also start perceiving you. If you don't love yourself, how do you expect others to love you? There are many people in this world who have such a hollow understanding of themselves and hollow connection with themselves. And this hollow connection with themselves um, leads people to a very negative frame of mind about themselves. Just like if you have a fruit and you squeeze the fruit, suppose you have a mango fruit and you squeeze the mango fruit, what comes out? Mango juice naturally. You can't expect orange juice to come out. What is inside you only will come out, right? When life squeezes you, what is inside you will come out. People have filled themselves with all kinds of junk, and when life squeezes them, they expect nectar to come out. Never happens. And therefore, people generally define themselves based on the way they look, the length of their hair, the color of their hair, the color of the skin, external appearances, and so many external factors. So essentially, if you really see how self-image is developed, it's not about the way you look, but it's about your contribution. In fact, if you look at the people who have really substantially done something in this world, like for example Mahatma Gandhi, Mother Teresa, Srila Prabhupada, Nelson Mandela, any of these people who have done something really substantial, the people really remember them for. None of them are actually beautiful people. They're not really good-looking people as such. But when you do something substantial in your life, nobody cares for how you look. Till you do something substantial, till you contribute in a tangible way, people keep looking at your passing moments. But when you contribute in a tangible way, nobody cares how you look. And therefore, it is very important to actually start developing a very healthy self-image about oneself, not based on externals, but based on contribution. Unfortunately, people are not very comfortable with themselves. The reason people are not comfortable with themselves is because they keep comparing with others. Constantly comparing with what others do or what others have and things like that. The reality is nobody in this world is similar to somebody else. Every one of us is just unique creations of God. In fact, when we compare ourselves with somebody else, we're actually insulting God's creation. Because you can't compare one person with another because there's nothing in common in one sense on an external level. Externally, yes, maybe you may find some factors, but in reality, God has created each one of us very uniquely. Rather than comparing, we need to really start understanding and celebrating the differences. When small children are born, many times parents get their children to me and the first question they ask is, child looks like mother or father. Can you imagine? From day one, the comparison begins. I tell them the child neither looks like father nor mother, the child looks like himself or herself. You can't compare. Why do you need to compare from them? We just almost ingraining the comparison mentality right from the beginning. And therefore, it is very important to really allow ourselves to appreciate the wisdom of God, to appreciate the greatness of God in seeing the differences. Just like there are two plants, there is a garden fern and there is a Chinese bamboo. If you plant a seed of a garden fern, within about 3 months it grows into a full-fledged plant. But if you plant the seed of a Chinese bamboo, the first 1 month nothing grows out of the ground. Second month also nothing grows. In fact, for 6 months nothing grows out of the ground. 1 year also nothing grows. 2 years also nothing grows. 3 years nothing grows out of the ground. Can you imagine what inspiration you'll have to water a plant when nothing grows out of the ground for 3 years? But after 3 years, within 3 weeks it grows to 100 feet in height. Now, if you compare a Chinese bamboo and a garden fern, which is better? You can't compare because both are different. The garden fern has its advantages, but it also has its disadvantages. The Chinese bamboo has advantages, it also has its disadvantages. Rather than comparing ourselves to somebody else, we need to start accepting the realities of life. What is the meaning of accepting the realities of life? Each one of us have our own unique personalities. Rather than trying to become like somebody else, we need to find strength in our own uniqueness. There was once an elephant that decided to participate in a running race. It was an Olympic competition of all the animals. The elephant also went and participated. So this fellow ran in the running race. There was a cheetah, deer, tiger, rabbit, and so many animals running. An elephant ran, and naturally it didn't win. So this elephant really got frustrated. He said, "Next year I will participate again, but next year I will win surely." So one full year, this fellow was going through jogging practices, weight loss programs, and so many things the elephant did. And again, it participated next year. Guess who won? Naturally, it lost. Cheetah won. The elephant went into permanent depression. If only the elephant participated in a wrestling competition or a weightlifting competition, there was no other way, no other animal could have won. So sometimes, instead of accepting the realities, we start fighting with the realities of life. We start not accepting the realities of life. Acceptance makes one emotionally tranquil, and non acceptance makes one emotionally agitated. Whenever we accept the realities of life, we become peaceful. And whenever we don't accept, we become agitated totally. Like, for example, if something is not happening the way I want it to happen, I have a desire that things should happen in this way. And if I accept it, it becomes known as tolerance. But if I don't accept it, it's known as anger. If somebody has something that I don't have, or somebody has the ability to do something that I'm not able to do, if I'm not able to accept it, it becomes jealousy. But if I'm able to accept it, it becomes inspiration. Fear is generally due to some uncertainty. Whenever there is uncertainty, it leads to fear. If I'm able to accept the uncertainty, it is known as adventure. Just like people do bungee jumping, jump off from tall buildings. So much uncertainty. But when you accept the uncertainty, it's not called fear anymore. It's called adventure. But if you don't accept the uncertainty, it becomes fear. If somebody, speaks some ill about you or, chastises you, curses you, whatever, and you're not able to accept it, it becomes known as hatred. But if you're able to accept it, it's known as forgiveness. So anything in this world which is dealt with acceptance, it's a positive emotion. And anything in this world that is dealt with non-acceptance is a negative emotion. And therefore, it is very important for human beings to start accepting the realities of life. Unfortunately, today's television, media, advertising industry, billboards, they just create such an artificial sense of reality. People are just not able to accept their own realities. And they have such high expectations. The bigger the gap between expectation and reality, the more miserable you are. Generally, the reality is so low and our expectation is so high. I know so many people who watch television advertisements and they get so inspired to do something. Like, for example, suppose, have you ever seen an advertisement where ugly people are there on the ads? Never. You'll always find the most perfect, the most beautiful people in the ads. So suppose, somebody looks at Fair and Lovely advertisement, and it's advertised that if you apply Fair and Lovely cream, you'll become fair. And people put kilos and kilos of Fair and Lovely, and they keep looking at the mirror when the transformation will happen. Nothing happens, The reality is as it is. So unfortunately, we try to fight with the realities of life rather than accepting the realities of life. The more you accept the realities of life, the more you'll be mentally tranquil. And the more you start fighting with the realities of life, the more you'll be mentally agitated. People feel that right now what I have, I'm not happy with it. But if I change something, maybe I'll become happy. They just feel that instead of instead of accepting the reality, they feel that I should look for some change. And if I get the right kind of change in my life, something different will happen, something magical will happen. In the process of looking for change, people forget to be satisfied with what they have. Like there was a king who wanted to celebrate his birthday, and he wanted to celebrate his birthday in a very unique way. So he decided that next day, whoever I see, first fellow I see, I'll make him happy. That's the way I celebrate my birthday. So next day morning, the first fellow he saw was a beggar. So he called the beggar and he gave him a copper coin. The beggar became so happy receiving a copper coin from the king. He started throwing the coin in the air, catching it. Somehow he missed it and it fell into the gutter. Like a wet flowing gutter. This fellow, he became so sad, he put his hand in the gutter to pick up that coin. The king called him, he said, forget that coin, and he gave him another copper coin. This fellow again, he became very happy, he put the coin in the pocket, again put his hand in the gutter. The king said, come over here. He gave him a silver coin. He said, forget that coin in the gutter. This fellow put that coin in his pocket, very happy, again put his hand in the gutter. The king was irritated now. I mean, how to make this fellow happy now? He called him, he said, take a gold coin. He gave him a gold coin. He said, you don't need that copper coin now. Just be happy with this. This fellow put the gold coin in his pocket, again put his hand in the gutter. The king called him back. He gave him a bag of gold coins. He said, what will you take to stop putting your hand in the gutter? This fellow said, no matter how much you give me, till the coin in the gutter comes out, I'll not be happy. And people are like that, Human beings, they're not happy with what they have. They feel that what they don't have only will give them happiness. Naturally, in the quest of trying to find the happiness, in the quest of trying to find what they don't have, they just go crazy. Thanksgiving Day, the whole shopping sale, it's all about trying to find something, Like many days back, when I was in Pittsburgh, somebody took me to Costco, and of course, for the first time I went to such a huge place. What I saw was very interesting. I saw there were so many old ladies, all 80 plus, almost on the verge of dying. Any day they can die. They were roaming around shopping, and I could see they didn't know what they wanted to buy. They were just hunting for something, And I realized what they're looking for is happiness. They're trying to look for happiness somewhere, They don't know where to find it. It's looking at all the different shelves, basically. Maybe somewhere happiness is there. People in this world take shelter of so many things to experience pleasure and joys. Actually, no matter how much you have, happiness doesn't lie in things at all. In the Mahabharata, there are two people who were into shopping. Now you might wonder where in Mahabharata was Walmart and all these places, Amazon. But the mindset is still there. 5,000 years back, the same mindset existed. Even today, it exists. So when I tell you these two examples, then you understand that this is perfectly right. The principles are exactly the same. In Mahabharata, we have one personality named Ashwathama. He was a shopping freak. He would shop for weapons. He would accumulate all kinds of things. So when he was born with a jewel on his head. And by the power of this jewel, anybody who had this jewel, that person would not be defeated by any enemy. He would never feel hunger, never feel thirst. He would never get diseased. Can you imagine, such a powerful jewel? But every time he would get attacked by an enemy, Ashwatthama would go and hide behind his father, Dronacharya. So he had the jewel, but he had no confidence in the jewel. It's like somebody having a high-end gadget. Like one time I was traveling in a train in India, and next to me there was one Indian villager, typical Indian villager sitting. This fellow removed from his pocket iPhone 7. I thought, wow, India is really progressing. But unfortunately, what he did next really disappointed me. This guy didn't know how to dial a number also. He's asking his neighbor, can you help me dial a phone? So Ashwatthama had this amazing jewel, but he had no confidence in how to use it. One time he saw his father Dronacharya giving Brahmastra to Arjun. So Ashwatthama went to his father and he said, I also want Brahmastra. His father said, come on, Brahmastra is not a toy, I can give it to you. It's a nuclear weapon. You're not qualified to receive it. Ashwatthama pestered his father so badly. The father said, take it and get lost from here. So Ashwatthama took the Brahmastra. He went to Dwarka to meet Lord Krishna. And he went and told Krishna, Krishna, I have an exchange offer for you. I'll give you a Brahmastra, you give me a Sudarshan Chakra. Can you imagine? So Krishna was very surprised. He said, till now nobody has asked me about Sudarshan Chakra. My brother has not asked me, my friends have not asked me, my son has not asked me. Where this fellow came from? He said, I don't want your Brahmastra, you keep it. You see if you can handle the Sudarshan Chakra. So he released the Sudarshan Chakra. This guy couldn't even hold it. He fell unconscious. Krishna asked him, tell me, why did you want the Sudarshan Chakra? This fellow says, I wanted the Sudarshan Chakra so that I can use it to kill you. Can you imagine what kind of person? So Ashwatthama mentality exists today. These are typically people who are not satisfied with what they have and they feel happiness lies in what they don't have. You go to a shop and you buy a mobile phone. I know so many people who do such intense research before getting one device. And this is the typical Bhagavad Gita. Krishna speaks about Dhyato Visham Pumsan Sangaste Supajayate. Dhyan, you contemplate on the objects of senses and you want to develop association with them. After doing hours and hours of research, you want to go and see how it feels. Go to a shop and have a look at it. As long as it's on the billboard, it looks great. As long as it is in the shelves, it looks great. As long as inside that box, it looks great. But the moment you pay for it and come out and it's in your hand, it just fizzles out. And the first thing you start thinking I should have got the other device. Instantly the mind just gets into the negative frame of mind, basically. So Ashwatthama mindset is all about dissatisfaction with what you have and looking for satisfaction in what you don't have. The same thing works in relationships also. What you have, you're not satisfied with. What you don't have, you're looking for satisfaction. It works with positions, it works with gadgets, it works with cars, it works with practically everything. On the other hand, in the Mahabharata, we have Arjun. Now, Arjun, he grew up in a very in a forest environment. And he never in his life ever demanded anything from his father nor from his guru. Arjuna believed in something known as the law of magnetism. Law of magnetism means that if you use what you have to the best capacity, you will get more. So Arjun, instead of trying to look for more things, he started looking for value in whatever he had. And therefore, he had never any shortage of anything. Always got all kinds of weapons and he always used them to the best possible capacity. So most people, when they are looking for change, what are they actually looking for? They're actually looking for transformation. Instead of calling it transformation, we start calling it change. The nature of the mind is to always be dissatisfied with what it has, as I said. And we look for change. There are two types of change in this world. There is a material change. This is known as go through life. No matter who you are, you have to go through 4 bottles in life. The milk bottle, there's a Coke bottle, then there's a whiskey bottle. Of course, this doesn't apply to devotees. And there's a 4th bottle called Drips bottle. This is known as go through life. This is material change. Whether you want it or no, these 4 ages or 4 phases of life will come into your life. You don't have to struggle for it. You don't have to even attempt for it. It will happen automatically. Then there is something known as spiritual change, which is known as growth through life. This actually is known as transformation. What we are looking for, when we say we're looking for change, we're actually not looking for transformation. We're not looking for change in life. What is the difference between change and transformation? Change is reversible and transformation is irreversible. Change is typically when I decide I'm going to do something today. Like for example, there is somebody who says, I'll stop smoking from today onwards. 2 days later, he starts smoking again. That is known as change. Like for example, there is a place in Mumbai known as Marine Drive. If you go there on 2nd of January, it is filled with people jogging. Because they just take a New Year resolution one day back. Thousands of people jogging. You go there on 2nd of February, nobody is there. This is known as change. Very much reversible. And transformation means irreversible change. A caterpillar becoming a butterfly is a transformation. A stone becoming a statue is a transformation. So each one of us have the opportunity or the ability to either go through change in life or go through transformation in life. When we are looking for change, we're looking for something very hollow. When we're looking for transformation, we're looking for something tangible. How does transformation happen? Each one of us who are there in this Hare Krishna movement today, we have gone through some transformation for sure. The day we decided that we were going to start chanting Hare Krishna, it's a transformation. The day we decided we were going to chant 16 rounds, transformation. The day we decided we were going to follow regulative principles, big transformation. The day we decided we were going to give up onion garlic, massive transformation. The day we decided we were going to give up tea coffee, impossible has happened practically. So we have already gone through some experiences of transformation in our life. And how does transformation happen? Transformation happens when you are present in some moment with full intensity. These moments in our life are known as ever since moments. Each one of us have gone through some ever since moment in our life. Like for example, Srila Prabhupada, ever since he met Bhakti Siddhanta on the terrace in Ultadanga Junction in Calcutta, his life was never the same. Went through a transformation, right? Ever since Gautam Buddha, Siddhartha, he saw those four people, a diseased person, a sick person, an old person, and a dead person. He was never the same person. He went through a transformation. He asked questions. Why these people are suffering? And he went through a transformation, became Gautam Buddha. So each one of us go through some ever since moments in our lives. But how does an ever since moment actually lead to transformation if you're present in that moment with full intensity? Unfortunately, why we don't go through repeated transformation in our lives is because we are not present in every moment with full intensity. The potential of us going through a lot of transformation is always there. But unfortunately, when we come to the Hare Krishna movement, in the initial phase, we go through rapid transformation and then we become stagnant. Nothing happens, Then you are like a, thela, what do you call that? Hand cart. Somebody has to keep pushing you. As much as somebody pushes you, go ahead and then you stop there. So somebody has to push you a little more again, So why we don't go through transformation in our life on a repeated basis? Because intensity decreases. Our intensity to be present in those moments decrease. Like, there was, one new person had come to Hare Krishna movement, Hare Krishna temple. And he was enthusiastically dancing in Kirtan. So they went and told one very senior devotee, saying that, Prabhuji, look at the enthusiasm with which he is dancing. He will make definitely a lot of advancement. The old person says, let's see how long he lasts enthusiastically. I also used to be enthusiastic like this in the beginning, We become very cynical in our mindset. And somewhere that enthusiasm and that inspiration and the excitement just goes away over the period of time. So for us to experience transformation on a regular basis, there has to be intensity. When we're present in those moments with full intensity, we go through what is known as transformation. The next thing that we will take up is known as self-management. Self-management means managing your own emotions. Each one of us in our lives go through so many problems. It's not possible for a human being not to have problems at all. If you're a human being, you will have problems. The question is, how do you deal with problems that come into life? Dealing with problems is all about having the right attitude to deal with the problem. In the Mahabharata, we find Arjun had once gone to the heavenly planets. And when he went to the heavenly planets, he was observing this dance of Urvashi, the Apsara, and he's sitting with Indra, his father. So Indra saw that Arjun was very much looking at Urvashi. So he thought Arjun interested in Urvashi. So he sent her later. So Urvashi came to Arjun and she said that you're a handsome man and I'm a beautiful girl. Why don't we come together? Arjun said, I'm sorry, I didn't look at you in that way. When I saw you, I remembered my ancestor, my great 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 grandfather. His name was Pururava, and you were his wife. So I was thinking that just see, here's my great 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 grandmother who looks so young. So Urvashi got really offended. I mean, you call a woman Mataji, especially those who are not connected at all to the process of Krishna consciousness, get highly offended by the whole thing. And here he's not just calling Mataji, he's calling great, 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 great Mataji. So Urvashi got so angry on him that she cursed him that he'll become a eunuch. Can you imagine a hero like Arjuna, warrior, very knowledgeable person, very handsome person, being cursed like that? But Arjun, he saw this curse and converted that curse into a blessing. When there was this 1 year of Agyatwas, when they were supposed to be incognito for one, he used this curse, and for 1 year he actually became eunuch. So many times in our lives, there will be negativity. Negativity, it's not that we have options whether we can become negative or negativity comes into our life or not. Negativity will come. But the question is, how do you deal with the negativity that comes in our life? Unfortunately, our mind is a very negative mindset. It is a very negative framework. And therefore, when we go through negativity in our life, the mind just doesn't accept it with positivity. It is very important to fill our minds with positivity in life. In the previous times, people used to laugh a lot. Unfortunately, nowadays nobody laughs. People hardly laugh. In fact, laughing loudly is considered to be bad manners today. If you laugh loudly, it's considered you are very ill-mannered. Nowadays, if people have to laugh loudly, they will say lol. That's all. Understood that I'm laughing out loud. Or if it becomes worse, they'll send a big smiley. So, therefore, because there is so much negativity stored within you, it just doesn't come out in any way, in a positive way. You just cannot experience positivity. And therefore, you get angry with anything and everything. If you're, bathing and you're, using the soap and the soap falls down, you start giving bad words to the soap also. What nonsense! Where did you go? And you're trying to make a call to somebody, the guy doesn't pick up the phone. You start blasting on the phone. So much pent up negativity because we don't give any expression of positivity in our lives. And therefore, it is very important for human beings to develop a framework of positivity. And this positivity helps you see even the most negative situations of life in the right way, the right mindset. Otherwise, we need so many psychiatrists and psychologists today. Unfortunately, these psychiatrists and psychologists are not completely equipped to help us. Because most of them, they themselves are going through so much negativity. Like there was one fellow who went to a psychiatrist and he told him, I feel like committing suicide, what should I do? The psychiatrist said, I tell you what I do when I feel like committing suicide. Can you imagine? If you're drowning in a quicksand, is helping somebody else drowning in a quicksand. So he said, whenever I feel negative, I go to a circus. And there's a joker over there. When I see this clown performing, I just go crazy and I forget all my problems. This man said, I am the joker. Can you imagine? So today's world is a world of smiling faces and crying hearts. You ask anybody, how are you? They'll say, fine, big smile on the face. But if you scratch the surface a little bit, there's an ocean of tears. There's a huge amount of frustration that people are trying to hide. Because they have somehow not been able to deal with negativity in the right way. There was one fellow who came to me and he said, I am highly frustrated. I am going to get divorced from my wife. I said, what happened? He said, yesterday my wife nagged me so badly that I threw the teacup on the television and I broke the TV. He said, if this continues, I cannot stay in this relationship. He said, tell me something what I should do. I told him, I'll give you an idea. You should follow it as it is. He said, yeah, I'll do anything you say. I told him, why don't you enjoy the nagging of your wife? This one said, what? How can you enjoy nagging? I said, let me give you an explanation. I said, when somebody starts drinking alcohol for the first time, generally it tastes very bitter. But if you keep drinking again and again and again, the same thing starts tasting like nectar, right? So it's the same thing in nagging. He said, why don't you start enjoying it? Initially it tastes bitter, but over a period of time you will like it. So this fellow heard what I said, he didn't understand anything, he went back home. After 2 weeks he came to me and he said, Prabhuji, what you said worked perfectly. I said, what happened? He said, I realized after you told me that my wife nags wonderfully, I said, please explain, He said, I have been observing the nagging of my wife. She has not studied much. She is like a 9th standard, she studied till 9th grade. But in her nagging, there is so much communication skill, There is open sentences, closed sentences, punctuation, voice modulation, so much depth. This silence also sometimes, So I said, my wife is such an expert in communication. He said, the more I observe her nagging, the more I realize that she is so good. And then he told me that I realized that she nags me because she loves me. And his whole frame of reference of nagging completely changed. Negativity in our lives is always going to be there. So it's not that we have option whether negativity will come or not. The only option we have is, can we see in a highly negative framework something positive waiting for us? And that positivity is what will help us deal with negative situations of life. And therefore, we find in Vrindavan, Kalia who came into Vrindavan, he came as a highly negative force. Everyone was frustrated with Kalia's presence. But when Krishna came in touch with Kalia, how did Krishna deal with Kalia? Krishna made a threat into a theatre. He used Kalia to give the biggest dance performance that the Brajawasis ever saw in their lives. He converted Kalia into a show, So when negativity comes into our life, instead of crying, instead of saying why it comes, we have to just look for how to transform that negative situation into something positive. And that's what comes when we look at life from a lighter side. After Gaur Aarti and after all our Aartis, we will continue the next part of the session, which is known as social awareness. Social awareness is about understanding other people's emotions. So far, we have focused on self-awareness and we focused on self-management. Then we are focusing on understanding our own emotions. Now we will focus on understanding other people's emotions, and then we will focus on dealing with relationships in this way. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna.